am honored today to share this time with you in conversation about the challenge of forming and nurturing loving relationships in our personal and ministerial lives. This value has been identified as integral to any ministry operating in the tradition of the Sisters of the Holy Family of Nazareth. Each of you has had experiences of loving relationships in your lives, so the invitation today is to consider how we might deepen the breadth and depth of our commitment to this core gospel value. Every life deserves the telling of its story. All lives contain lessons to be learned, losses and regrets to be grieved, and joys to be celebrated. It is not the greatness of the life, its length, the personal tragedies and triumphs that merit the telling. It is simply that it is a life. Someone once said that an enemy is someone whose story we have not heard. If this is true, then listening may well be the first giant step toward love. Love, simply put then, is the ability to listen, really listen to the story of another's life. That in itself is a challenge. The next step may be even more demanding, to respond with unfettered generosity and abundant graciousness to what we have heard. This demands a disposition of heart and mind to attentiveness, to compassion, to an intuitive sensitivity to the other's story, spoken and unspoken. It compels us to live with the awareness that there is no other, that we are all connected and indelibly bonded to one another. At its most mature level, a loving relationship is neither based on feeling nor mutuality, though both of these are good. Mature love is an act of the will to stay faithful in a relationship. It means remaining patient. It is creating something new of shattered dreams or small disappointments. It is daily embracing the here and now of another person. We have only to imagine the cost of fidelity for someone caring for a spouse with dementia, or the family of a veteran who returns from war radically changed, or the fidelity of a parent whose child has made terrible choices, or the pain of the child of divorce, addiction, or abuse. In these or other ways, we have all been disappointed in love. But the great command to love always endures and challenges us to be our best and most generous selves, no matter what life throws at us. Frances Siedliska, foundress of the Sisters of the Holy Family of Nazareth and our great mentor, exhibited the value of loving relationships throughout her life. You have heard something about her in a previous session. She was an amazing woman with immense spiritual and organizational skills. Inspired by the relationship between Father, Son, and Spirit in the Holy Trinity, and between Jesus, Mary, and Joseph in the Holy Family of Nazareth, Frances was imbued with a deep, abiding love that extended to all. She firmly believed that the kingdom of God is within us, and nothing about us should cloud the clarity of that image. Frances chose as her religious name Mary of Jesus the Good Shepherd, taking the Good Shepherd as her model. From him, she learned that love endures all things and never ceases the good of the other. Frances consistently urged her sisters and herself to greater and deeper love. She firmly believed that the family was the first school of love, and committed her sisters to the renewal of family life so that each family could better enjoy the richly formative value of loving relationships. We all follow in these heroic footsteps. For us, the call to love extends even beyond our human encounters. We are blessed to live in a time when science, reason, and theology together remind us that all is one. All is imbued with the creative force that thrust it into existence. Our challenge is to take that ability to listen to a life unfolding and extend that awe, respect, and appreciation to everything, every encounter, every person. Developing this disposition toward loving relationships with all of creation is immensely stretching, particularly in the morally chaotic times in which we live. In this time when our planet's resources suffer from millennia of abuse, this time when boundaries are even more fluid and enemies harder to detect. As our lifestyles, our ministries, our faith communities, and perhaps even our most intimate personal relationships move into an ambiguous future, loving as God loves may feel like a greater challenge than we can manage on any given day. But broken down into smaller bites, it may just mean making eye contact with every person we pass, attentive to the possibilities of the moment. It means stopping long enough to acknowledge beauty. It means staying healthy, rested, and secure enough to focus on the other, to hear what is and what is not being said, to welcome the untold story, to companion someone into healing. Modern science has proven that acts which seem random and isolated are actually replicated in multiple, diverse, and unconnected situations until an irreversible momentum occurs and a new pattern of accepted behavior emerges. This should be a great consolation to those of us plugging away in our relationships at home and at work, committed as we are to the often mundane, seemingly insignificant acts of kindness and compassion. These are, at this very moment, part of a groundswell of other small acts of kindness that are changing the world. So continue those acts of love, great and small, believing that they are our co-creation of the reign of God. And what particular challenges face those of us in institutional ministry? How might our behaviors, our policies, our corporate decisions reflect loving relationships as they are understood in this time? What can we learn about loving relationships from a cosmology that understands the universe as ever-expanding, participative, and in a constant state of dying and rebirth? How do we make a leap of consciousness from a dualistic way of thinking and acting that divides people to one deeply aware of the fundamental unity of all creation? How might we imbue our decision-making processes with intentional communal discernment that allows the precious value of loving relationships to be better expressed in the outcomes? How do we stretch our limited time, resources, and talent to embrace the unmet and critical needs of those most on the margins of society, and therefore most in need of love? How else might we demonstrate loving relationships in an institutional environment? Might we examine ourselves about violence, however subtle, and how it needs to be identified and then rooted out of our institution? Might we examine our institution, our team, our office boundaries, and honestly ask who feels let in and who feels left out? Do we listen well enough to our prophets who call us over and over again to the margins where loving relationships will challenge our comfort zone and upset our well-regulated lives? Some of us were formed in a time of relative stability, where a hierarchy of authority was clear, where patriarchy prevailed, and exclusion was mandated. We knew who to love and how to love, and who could rightfully be kept outside the arena of our concern. Life and love were prescribed, and there was a comfort in bumping into the boundaries that contained and protected us from the others out there. Even if that was just the other ethnic Catholics in the parish down the street. Remember those days? Are we past them even yet? We are fortunate today to operate within a church whose most visible leaders offer compelling primacy to loving relationships as being at the heart of the gospel. Pope Benedict's first encyclical, Deus Caritas Est, begins with this message. In a world where the name of God is sometimes associated with vengeance or even a duty of hatred and violence, this message is both timely and significant. For this reason, I wish in my first encyclical to speak of the love which God lavishes upon us and which, in turn, we must share with others. The papacy, says theologian Karl Rahner, can represent the world conscience of a single humanity. As Benedict called us with words, so Pope Francis seems intent on instructing by his actions that loving relationships form the basis of this world conscience. He washes the feet of women, even a Muslim girl. He maintains a simplicity and humility and accessibility of lifestyle that can keep him honest, connected, and listening with a heart that is passionate and emotionally invested in the lives of the disenfranchised. Perhaps this is a good time, following both Mother Francis and Pope Francis's examples, to examine our personal styles of ministry, the privileges that may have grown up around our position, and to name any ways we exclude, judge, or otherwise diminish another person, place, or thing. It is up to us to live and lead in such a way that communion and community are primary expressions of loving relationships. Is there a uniquely Nazareth way to do this? That is the question each of us, personally and institutionally, must answer as we strive to integrate ever more deeply the value of loving relationships which we profess to be core to our very existence.